Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yep, here we go. Chapter 11.
Yep. The monad at work, building his vehicles. Let us now consider the work of the monad and the shaping of his vehicles when he has as his representatives, as himself on the third, fourth, and fifth planes, Atma Buddhi Manas, with the causal body as the receptacle, the treasure house of the experiences of each incarnation. At the close of each period of life, that is to say, at the end of each devachanic existence, he must stimulate into renewed activity the three successive nuclei of bodies he is to wear during his next life period. First, he arouses the mental nucleus. This arousing consists in increasing the flow of life through the spirale. It will be remembered that when the permanent units went to sleep, the normal flow of the spirale lessened, and during the whole period of repose, this flow is small and slow. When the time for reincarnation arrives, this flow is increased. The spirale thrill with life, and the permanent units, one after another, behave as magnets, attracting round themselves appropriate matter. Thus, when the mental unit is stimulated, it begins to vibrate strongly according to the vibratory powers, the results of past experiences, stored up therein, drawing towards and arranging around itself appropriate matter from the mental plane. Just as a bar of soft iron becomes a magnet when a current is sent through a wire encircling it, and as matter within its magnetic field will at once arrange itself round that magnet, so it is with the permanent mental unit. When the life current encircles it, it becomes a magnet. And matter within the field of its forces arranges itself round it and forms a new mental body. The matter attracted will be according to the complexity of the permanent unit. Not only will finer or coarser matter be attracted, but the matter must also vary in the development of the atoms which enter into the formation of its aggregations. The molecules attracted will be composed of atoms, the vibratory energies of which are identical with, or approach nearly to, or are in tune with, those of the attracting unit. Hence, according to the stage of evolution reached by the man, will be the development of the matter of his new mental vehicle. In this way, incarnation after incarnation, a suitable mental body is built up. So this is a multi-lifetime process, as we've talked about before. And we keep coming back to continuously perfect it.
Have you ever read, since we're talking,
Sure.
have you ever read the book, Tibetan Book of the Dead?
Bits and pieces, never cover to cover, but yes, I have it.
It discusses quite deeply Devachan.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's an illusory but real realm that you're in. And he's basically saying here that that's where you are. Right?
Right.
That's what you just said.
Yeah.
You know, and so the whole thing about, entrance into life, right, upon death and stuff, dude. And the occultist, and they say, well, this experience is death, essentially, right? Like prior to the movement into life, and then life more abundantly and such. And it's like, oh my gosh, the reality of that, right? That you're in it, you're in David. We talk about David Shem like it's something else. No, you're in it. So that's something that I'm gonna have to probably do a little more research on, so.
But it
Anyway.
repeats itself until the mental body has been perfected, right? Maybe you can
Is that
extend beyond
is that what it
that.
just said?
I don't
Okay,
know, I feel well, incarnation after incarnation until a suitable mental body is built up. I don't want to backtrack too much because the
well,
scaling
you
is weird
know,
here.
yeah, I always remember like the story about the monk who died and then woke up in a sensuous realm, right? And with like women and this and that and all this thing around him, and he's like, wow, how did I get here? This isn't what I wanted, you know. And it's like then there's that, that whole, well, this isn't what you wanted.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, it gets weird. Yeah, so that's wild.
Okay. Exactly the same process is repeated on the astral plane in the building of the new astral body. The astral nucleus, the astral permanent atom, is similarly vivified and acts in a similar way. The man is thus clothed with new mental and astral bodies, which express his stage of evolution and enable whatever powers and faculties he possesses to express themselves duly in their own worlds. But when we come to the shaping of the body on the physical plane, a new element appears, so far as the monad is concerned. The work is the same. He vivifies the physical nucleus, the physical permanent atom, and it acts as a magnet like its fellows. But now it is as though a man interfered with the attraction and arrangement of matter within a magnetic field. The elemental, charged with the duty of shaping the etheric double after the model given by the lords of karma, steps in and takes control of the work. The materials indeed may be gathered together as a workman might carry bricks for the building of a house, but the builder takes the bricks, accepts or rejects, and sets them according to the plan of the architect. The question arises, why this difference? Why, on reaching the physical plane, where we might expect a repetition of the previous processes, should an alien power take the control of the building out of the hands of the owner of the house? The answer lies in the working of the law of karma. On the higher planes, the sheaths express as much of the man as is developed, and he is not there working out the results of his past relations with others. Each center of consciousness on those planes is working within its own circle. Its energies are directed towards its own vehicles, and only so much of them as is finally expressed through the physical vehicle acts directly upon others. These relations with others complicate his karma on the physical plane, and the particular physical form that he wears during a particular life period must be suitable for the working out of this complicated karma. Hence the need for the adjusting interference of the lords of karma. Where he had a point of evolution at which he entered into similarly direct relations with others on other planes, similar limitations of his power to shape his vehicles on those planes would appear. In the sphere of his external activities, whatever it may be, these limitations must present themselves. Hence, the shaping of the physical body is done by an authority higher than his own. He must accept the conditions of race, nation, family, circumstances demanded by his past activities. This limiting action of karma necessitates the building of a vehicle which is but a partial expression of the working consciousness. Partial, not only because of the shutting off of power by the coarseness of the material itself, but also because of the external limitations above referred to. Much of his consciousness, even though ready for expression on the physical plane, may thus be excluded, and only a small part of it may appear on the physical plane as waking consciousness. The next point in connection with this building that we must consider is the special work of organizing the vehicles as expressions of consciousness. Leaving apart the general building by desire and thought with which we are so familiar, we are concerned here with details rather than with broad outlines. We know that while qualities are imparted to matter during the descent of the second logos, the arrangement of these specialized materials into relatively permanent forms belongs to his ascent. When the monad, through his reflection of this as the spiritual man, assumes some directive power over his vehicles, he finds himself in possession of a form in which the sympathetic nervous system is playing a very large part, and in which cerebrospinal has not yet assumed predominance. Oops, sorry about that. He will have to work up a number. I think that's a number connecting maybe links between his sympathetic system, which inherits in the centers which he must organize in his body for his future independent functioning therein before any independent functioning in any higher. Looks like some of the words are cut off here on this. Higher vehicle possible. It is necessary to carry it to a fairly high.
Agree?
I don't know. It starts with PO.
Or,
before any independent functioning in any higher vehicle possible, it is necessary to carry it to a fairly high, maybe position. Transmitting vehicle is a vehicle through which moves down to his body on the physical plane. Yep.
how did it start? What's the start of that paragraph?
It's page 160.
Yeah.
If the pagination is the same on your version.
It's not.
We know
Okay.
that while qualities are imparted to matter during the descent of the second logos, the arrangement of these specialized materials into relatively permanent forms belongs to his ascent. When the monad, through his reflection as a spiritual man, assumes some directive power over his vehicles, he finds himself in possession of a form in which the sympathetic nervous system is playing a very large part, and in which the cerebrospinal has not yet assumed predominance. He will have to work up a number connecting links.
Yep.
Between his sympathetic system, which inherits.
Which he inherits. And the centers, which he must organize. In his astral body.
In his astral body. So yeah, there's a lot of words being cut off.
All right.
In the book.
Let me,
here.
well,
So why don't
finish this page then.
Why don't you read it and I'll scroll.
Yeah.
For his future independent functioning.
Therein. But before any independent functioning in any higher vehicle is possible, it is necessary to carry it to a fairly high point as a transmitting vehicle. That is a vehicle through which he works down to his body on the physical plane. We must distinguish between the primary work of the organization of the mental and astral vehicles that fits them to be transmitters of parts of the consciousness of the spiritual man, and the later work of developing these same vehicles into independent bodies in which the spiritual man will be able to function on their respective planes. Hence, there are two tasks to be performed. First, the organization of the mental and astral vehicles as transmitters of consciousness to the physical body. Secondly, the organization of these vehicles into independent bodies in which consciousness can function without the help of the physical body. The astral and mental vehicles then must be organized in order that the spiritual man may use the physical brain and nervous system as his organ of consciousness on the physical plane. The impulse to such use comes from the physical world by impacts upon the various nerve ends, causing waves of nervous energy to pass along the fibers to the brain. These waves pass from the dense brain to the etheric, thence thence to the astral, thence to the mental vehicle, arousing a response from the consciousness in the causal body on the mental plane. That consciousness, thus aroused by impacts from without, gives rise to vibrations which flow down in answer from the causal body to the mental, from the mental to the astral, from the astral to the etheric and dense physical. The waves set up electric currents in the etheric brain, and these act on the dense matter of the nervous cell. How's it looking now?
It's looking back to normal. But
Okay.
let me just check ahead real quick. To
So
see if it
we're at
occurs
all these
again.
vibrations.
Yeah, it looks like we might be good for the next couple of pages. So I'll pick up the reading, and if you have to step
Okay.
in, I'll let you know. So keep along in your book. So if I need you to pick up, you're at the right place. So is where we had all these vibratory actions?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All these vibratory actions gradually organize the first inchoate clouds of astral and mental matter into vehicles which serve as effective fields for these constant actions and reactions. This process goes on during hundreds of births started, as we have seen from below, but gradually coming more and more under the control of the spiritual man. He begins to direct his activities by his memories of past sensations and starts each activity under the impulse of these memories stimulated by desire. As the process continues, more and more forcible direction comes from within, and less directive power is exercised by the attractions and repulsions of external objects, and thus the control of the building up of the vehicles is largely withdrawn from the without and is centered in the within. As the vehicle becomes more organized, certain aggregations of matter appear within it, at first cloudy and vague, then more and more definitely outlined. These are the future chakras, or wheels, the sense centers of the astral body, as distinguished from the astral sense centers connected with the sense organs and centers of the physical body. But nothing is done to vivify these slowly growing centers for immense periods of time, and the connection of them with the physical body is often delayed, even after they are functioning on the astral plane. For this connection can only be made from the physical vehicle, wherein the fiery force of Kundalini resides. Before Kundalini can reach them, so that they can pass their observations onto the physical body, they must be linked to the sympathetic nervous system, the large ganglionic cells in that system being the points of contact. When these links are made, the fiery current can flow through, and observations of astral events can be transmitted fully to the physical brain. While they can only be thus linked with the physical vehicle, the building of them as centers and the gradual organization of them into wheels can be begun from any vehicle, and will be begun in any individual form, that vehicle which represents the special type of temperament to which he belongs. According as a man belongs to one typical temperament or another, so will be the place of the greatest activity in the building up of all the vehicles and the gradual making of them into effective instruments of consciousness to be expressed on the physical plane. The center of activity may be in the physical, astral, lower, or higher mental body. In any of these, or even higher still, according to the temperamental type, the center will be found in the principle which marks out the temperamental type, and from that it works upwards or downwards, shaping the vehicle so as to make them suitable for the expression of that temperament. 2, an evolving man. And it looks like we're moving into another cutoff page, so I might need you to pick up. So a special case may be taken to facilitate the understanding of this process, a temperament in which the concrete mind predominates. We will trace the spiritual man through the 3rd, 4th, and 5th root races. When we look at him at work in the 3rd race, we find him very infantile mentally, even though the mind is the predominant note of his type. The surging life around him that he can neither understand nor master works strongly upon him from outside and powerfully affects his astral vehicle. This astral vehicle will be retentive of impressions in consequence of the temperament, and the desires will stimulate the infantile mind to efforts directed to their satisfaction. Excuse me. His physical constitution differs from that of the fifth race man. The sympathetic system is still dominant and the cerebrospinal system subordinate. But parts of the sympathetic system are beginning to lose much of their effectiveness as instruments of consciousness, belonging as such instruments to the stage below the human. There are two bodies in the brain especially connected with the sympathetic system in their inception, although now forming part of the cerebrospinal, the pineal gland, and the pituitary body. They illustrate the way in which a part of the body may function in one manner at an early stage, may then lose its special use and function little, if at all, and at a later stage of evolution may again be stimulated by a higher kind of life, which will give it a new use and function at a higher stage of evolution. The development of these bodies belongs to the invertebrate rather than to the vertebrate kingdom. And the third eye is spoken of by biologists as the invertebrate eye. It is, however, still found as an eye among vertebrates, for a snake was lately found in Australia, which showed on the top of the head a peculiar arrangement of semi-transparent scales. When these were cut away, a complete eye was found underneath, an eye complete in its parts, although not functioning. That third eye was functioning among the Lemurians in the vague and general way characteristic of the lower stages of evolution, and especially characteristic of the sympathetic system. As our man advanced from the Lemurian into the Atlantean race, the third eye ceased to function. The brain developed around it, and it became the appendage now called the pineal gland. As a Lemurian, he had been psychic, the sympathetic system being largely affected by the surgings of the undeveloped astral body. As an Atlantean, he gradually lost his psychic powers as the sympathetic system became subordinate and the cerebrospinal grew stronger. The growth in the cerebrospinal system would be more rapid in this Atlantean than in those of other temperaments, because the main activity would be in the concrete mind, and would thus stimulate and fashion it. The astral body would lose its predominance sooner and would become more rapidly a transmitter of mental impulses to the brain. Hence, when our man passed on into the fifth race, he would be peculiarly ready to take advantage of its characteristics. He would build a large and well-proportioned brain. He would utilize his astral chiefly as a transmitter and would build his chakras from the mental plane. 3. Pituitary body and pineal gland. To return to the second of the two bodies mentioned above, the pituitary body. This is regarded as developed from a primeval mouth in direct continuity with the alimentary canal of the invertebrates. It ceased to function as a mouth in the vertebrates and became a rudimentary organ, but it has retained a peculiar function in connection with the growth of the body. It is active during the normal period of physical growth, and the more actively it functions, the greater the growth of the body. In giants, it has been found that this organ is peculiarly active. Moreover, the pituitary body sometimes again begins to function in later life, when the bony framework of the body is set, and then causes abnormal and monstrous growth at the free points of the body, hands, feet, nose, etc., giving rise to disfigurement of a most distressing kind. As the cerebrospinal system became dominant, the earlier function of these two bodies disappeared. But these organs have a future as well as a past. The past was connected with the sympathetic system. The future is connected with the cerebrospinal system. As evolution goes on, and the chakras in the astral body are vivified, the pituitary body becomes the physical organ for astral and later for mental clairvoyance. Where too great a strain is made upon the astral faculty of sight while in the physical body, inflammation of the pituitary body sometimes results. This organ is the one through which the knowledge gained by astral vision is transmitted to the brain. And it is also used in vivifying the points of contact between the sympathetic system and the astral body, whereby a continuity of consciousness is established between the astral and physical planes. All right, we're moving into cutoff territory. So why don't you pick up on the pineal gland becomes?
Okay. The pineal gland becomes connected with one of the chakras in the astral body, and through that with the mental body, and serves as a physical organ for the transmission of thought from one brain to another. In thought transmission, the thought may be flashed from mind to mind, mental matter being used as the medium for transmission. Or it may be sent down to the physical brain, and by means of the pineal gland, may be sent via the physical ether to the pineal gland in another brain, and thus to the receiving consciousness. While the center of activity lies in the dominant principle of the man, the connection of the chakras with the physical body must be made, as said, from the physical plane. The object of this connection is not to make the astral vehicle a more efficient transmitter to the physical body of the energies of the spiritual man, but to enable the astral vehicle to be in full touch with the physical. There may be different centers of activity for the building up of transmitting vehicles, but it is necessary to start from the physical plane in order to bring the results of the activities of bodies functioning on other planes within the waking consciousness. Hence the high importance of physical purity in diet and other matters. People often ask, how does knowledge gained on higher planes reach the brain? And why is it not accompanied by memory of the circumstances under which it was acquired? Anyone who practices meditation regularly knows that much knowledge that he has not gained by study on the physical plane appears in the brain. Whence it comes? ? It comes from the astral or mental plane, where it was acquired, and reaches the brain in the ordinary way above described. The consciousness has assimilated it on the mental plane directly, where it has reached it from the astral and sends down thought waves as usual. It may have been communicated by some entity on the higher plane who has acted directly on the mental body. But the circumstances of the communication may not be remembered for one of two reasons or both. Most people are not what is technically called awake on the astral and mental planes. That is, their faculties are turned inwards, are occupied with mental processes and emotions, and are not engaged in the observation of the external phenomena of those planes. They may be very receptive, and their astral and mental bodies may easily be thrown into vibration, and the vibrations conveyed the knowledge which is thus given, but their attention is not turned to the person making the communication. As evolution goes on, people become more and more receptive on the astral and mental planes, but do not therefore become aware of their surroundings. How are we looking?
Check the next pages. I think I can pick it up. I think I can pick it up.
Okay.
The other reason for the lack of memory is the absence of the connecting links with the sympathetic system before mentioned. Person may be awake on the astral plane and functioning actively thereon, and he may be vividly conscious of his surroundings. But if the connecting links between the astral and physical systems have not been made or are not vivified, there is a break in consciousness. However vivid may be the consciousness on the astral plane, it cannot, until these links are functioning, bring through and impress on the physical brain the memory of astral experiences. In addition to these links, there must be the active functioning of the pituitary body, which focuses the astral vibrations much as a burning glass focuses the rays of the sun. A number of the astral vibrations are drawn together, and made to fall on a particular point, and vibrations being thus set up in dense physical matter, the further propagation of these is easy. All this is necessary for remembering. 4. The paths of consciousness. The question arises, does consciousness always travel along the same path to reach its physical vehicle? Transits, we know, are sometimes made directly through the atomic subplanes from plane to plane, and sometimes by passing through each subplane from the 7th to the 1st before reaching the atomic subplane next below. Which of these paths does consciousness follow? In its normal working, in the ordinary process of thinking, the wave comes steadily down through each successive subplane from the mental through the 7 astral subplanes to the physical etheric, and so to the dense nervous matter. This wave sets up electrical currents in the etheric matter. These affect the protoplasm of the gray cells. But when the peculiar flashes of consciousness occur, as in flashes of genius, or as in sudden illuminative ideas which flash into the mind, such as a flash as comes to the scientific man, when out of a great mass of facts, there suddenly springs forth the unifying underlying law. Then the consciousness pours downward through the atomic subplanes only, and thus reaches the brain. This is the illuminative idea which justifies itself by its mere appearance, like the sunlight, and does not gain compelling power by any process of reasoning. Thus, reasoning comes to the brain by the successive subplanes, authoritative illumination by the atomic subplanes only. And that, sir, closes chapter 11.
Yeah, that's a lot, man.
It is.
The paths of consciousness. That's a pretty good explanation of what we just went through there. Yeah. All right. Well, what you got? What do you got to say about that?
Oh, well, I like how it makes a connection with the scientific side of what's going on here. That all of this is energy and electricity and
Yeah, it's the monad at work, right?
right. You need to make sure there's some reference in here about ensuring that there's a good synthesized connection between the astral or the physical and the astral. Otherwise, there's going to be a break in consciousness. So, and there seemed to be a lot of reference, even though we don't have it up, to the chart that we often have up as we're reading through these materials, because it's referencing the subplanes within each of the major planes.
Yeah.
How everything interacts there. So outside of that, which is directly obvious by the reading, certainly material that's not foreign to us, because this stuff is referenced in decay materials as well. So it's good to get it reiterated with a different author.
Yeah, you need to, yeah, we need to set up the links
Yeah,
so that there's no breaks in consciousness, essentially. Yeah, this is pretty incredible stuff. Yeah.
always gives us much to ponder, think about,
Yes, sir.
and always has
All
a
right,
good tie-in with conversations we have before we even get on video too, I think. So
yeah, definitely.
so
All right. Well, we're about halfway through the book at this point. Actually, a little more, a little better than halfway after today. So we will get back at it here pretty quickly. Yeah. Sorry, I got allergies right now, but
Yeah, well,
it is what it is.
gotta take the bad with the good. Got that fresh mountain air.
Yeah.
Probably have a lot of horticulture that you're not used to.
Beautiful aspen and evergreen trees and
Yeah.
all out here. Just unbelievable scenery, but lots of dust on what we're working on right now. So, but all right, we will get back at it and hit chapter 12 as soon as possible.
Sounds good.
All right, let me do this.